My name is Lynn. I am from Singapore, and somehow my journey took me to London and then to Luxembourg, and I've been here ever since. Breathing on the Water is my first feature that I've written. Basically, it was a film that Eric and we were researching for like something totally different. I think to them at the time it was important that a women's shelter is portrayed correctly. It was important for us as well, right? Because we had like this preconception when we went into a women's before we went in, we had this preconception that like, oh yeah, okay, it's a women's shelter, people are really sad, and it's dark and it's gloomy and everyone's crying. And when we went there, it was not like that at all. When we went there, we realized that this was a place of light and of love and of strength. And this story that we had, like, it was some kind of like revenge, a crime film, someone kills someone, blah, 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 blah. And we threw that out the window kind of immediately. And we were like, okay, you know what? This is a story that needs to be told. The strength of this woman is a story that needs to be told. So originally, we conceived the film as a feeling, this feeling of not being able to say or not being able to being under so much pressure that you're not able to move even, and it was an impossible task, you know. So breathing underwater was impossible. It's the title fit so well because it was exactly the feeling that we had while writing the film and while making the film and while attempting to tell these stories. And it's also the feeling that this pressure that the women have, not being able to tell people what's happened, to understand what's happened to them themselves. It's basically coming from the idea of an impossible situation.
C'est votre mari qui a apporté vos affaires. Il attend dehors. Vous voulez que je le fasse entrer? Non.
From the very beginning, we were very, very sure that we did not want to glorify the violence. And we were also very, very sure that that was not the story that we wanted to tell. We didn't want to tell a story where a woman is beaten, or we didn't want to tell a story where like you see violence and you're like, oh my God, that happened. It's more about relationships, psychology, and strength. And we were always very, very sure that we wanted to show the strength of the women in the film. So in not showing the violence, because it doesn't matter what happened to them in a way. What matters is that they survive and they continue and they are strong from it.
Les larmes. Tu fais chier avec ça, arrête. T'es tellement moche quand tu pleures.
If you know about the cycle of violence, yeah, there's like or the types of abuse there are in the world. You have economic abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse. We chose to highlight, if you will, highlight is a really bad word, but the psychological abuse is something that was invisible, and it happens to everyone who has experienced violence. That is like the first violence is the psychological violence, the one that you don't see, the one that seeps in, the one that sits there and makes every other violence possible. And that was the challenge. How do you show psychological violence, something that's not physical? The physical violence is easy. The psychological violence is so hard. Like in the beginning of the film, when you see Emma with the bruises on her back, and then she tells this thing, it's like, oh yeah, I fell down the stairs. And we use that as like, this preconception thing. So yeah, of course she got beaten. Of course. Right? But no, she didn't. it was self-harm because she was suffering from psychological violence. I loved how I told the story with, I don't know if anybody notices this yet, but I told the story in a very specific way with the light. Um, but there's this one scene in the film that was very personal to me, and there's a scene in the film where Emma is under the blankets and she screams in the middle of the night, and I call that scene the mound because she's like a mound under the blanket. It was a very hard scene to film in its simplicity because it's only one shot. And for that shot to happen, for the actor to be able to do it even, it was really, really difficult for all of it to happen because of the actor's emotions. Yeah, that kind of bleeds into the direction of the film. But Carla Yuri, brilliant, brilliant actress, she lived everything when we were shooting it. It was like very emotionally raw in real life. If you imagine what a film set is like, where you have like 30 people standing behind the camera, everybody was affected by what was happening in front of them. And we still had to do our jobs. And that's how real it was for all of us.
Je vous contacterai, promis. Je jure, je te jure.
What we did was we had impressions of young, old, black, white, Muslim, Christian. You know, there were just so many women who had so many different stories, but at the end of the day, like the through line, the emotional through line was the same, if you will. Like their hopes and their dreams. You know, you go into a relationship and you hope and you dream that it works out, you know. And it's this dream is so strong, and this love is so strong, and this want is so strong that it's so difficult to let go, right? And that was like the through line for how we understood why this crucial question, oh, why didn't she just leave? What we found in Luxembourg, at least, that Emma, the character of Emma, was an impossibility, logically. A well-off woman, white, privileged, who ends up in a women's shelter. And Emma was kind of like a representative of the section of people in the world who are not poor, who are not disadvantaged, if you will. And we wanted to reach those people as well, because it happens to everyone. We met someone who was also of that, social strata, right? Who never went to a women's shelter because she had the means to pay herself out. Yeah. That we found out later, actually, during the screenings, that there was also a woman who was, her story was so similar to Emma's story, which is something that we came up with. That was something that we put together. And we were like, oh, okay, you know what? Yeah, she does exist. So Emma is not made up per se, but Emma was something that we want to represent to the world. That it just doesn't happen to them; it happens to us. During our research, we also spoke to the male side of it. Yeah, so there are services in Luxembourg where the male perpetrators, if you will, are court mandated to go speak to a psychologist. Right, so we went to these psychologists and this service, and they said to us, "Oh yeah, it's like the men, they can be a laborer, they can be a mechanic, they can be a lawyer, they can be a CEO, you know, full spectrum." So we're like, women must also be full spectrum. The main thing that I was doing with the light in this film actually was that because the topic was so dark, I was trying to make sure that there was a lot of light in the film. If you notice the house, the women's shelter, there's always this warm light that's kind of like hugging you and hugging the women. The house in itself is kind of like a character that says, "Hey, come, I'm going to take care of you," and that runs throughout the film. That the house takes care of the women, and they take care of each other, no matter what they've been through. And if you don't, I mean, if you don't read it like intellectually, it's a feeling that I decided to put in there that hopefully made it through the film. The lighting of the film is very naturalistic because I didn't want to like, make people feel like, oh yeah, this is a movie. But here we went with a very, very realistic, you know where the light's coming from. The sun is coming from this direction. If it's raining, you feel the thunder. You hear the rain. Even the scene in the club, right? This glow in the dark paint. It was meant to show an external feeling of what they had inside. So all of this was their expression of themselves coming out that you could see. It's an expression of the joy and the pain and everything in between. And like the very first bit, when you get into this room and they put the paint on, right, it's an externalization of like Emma's wounds. Where she puts like three lines of paint on her arm, exactly where her bruises are. We've actually gone with this film to like schools and to the general public. We have a ministry in Luxembourg called the Ministère de l'Égalité yeah. Basically, they have a ministry here that supports the women's shelters and supports the promotion of equality in Luxembourg. So we are in a partnership with them now to bring the film to the general public and to schools and to the police and to justices so that people recognize what abuse is and what forms it can take. The film is reaching a lot of people and a lot of students. When you're a teenager, this is where your self-worth starts to form itself, right? And starting from a younger age, well, where they're able to watch this film. It's rated 12 here, Mabel. uh, where they can recognize what abuse is, and in every screening with students, there have been minimum of one student who has come up to us and said, "I need help. My mother needs help. What can I do?" And it's so prolific. It's ridiculous. And for the general public, when you screen it, women, they said, "Hey, this has happened to me too. Thank you for making this film because now I feel seen. Now I can put words to what's happening to me." It's not a sad film, if you will. I mean, I would argue it's not a sad film. It's a film that allows you to see what it's like and to have a voice, to be able to describe what happened to you, or to have a voice to be able to describe what happened to somebody else. Trauma is generational.
Yeah.
If your mother's been abused, or her mother's been abused, she's likely to be abused as well, and it's likely to go down the line where, like, the parents, they don't function well, and the child is like kind of like absorbing what's happening, and then it just goes on and on and on. So, like, the damage continues. But yeah, so this is something that we did in order to put a word to it, a face to it, a name to it, to try and attempt to stop it. Pretty unlikely that it's going to get anywhere, but I mean, it's very nice that we're nominated, and it's also nice to be at festivals as well, to be selected. But I think Eric and I had always had this thing where it doesn't matter if we win anything or if we go anywhere with this film. What matters is that we gave our all into making this film, and that if it saves one person's life in the world, it's all been worth it.